How's everybody doing today? Woohoo, the chat is already going. I haven't even started yet. Let's see here. Alrighty, I'm going to take a quick peek through the chat before I get started today. So I see Maria is excited to see the garden bed. Left some aloe vera Italian basil seeds at the Alhambra Library today. Very nice, Maria. Maria's sharing that the Alhambra Library has a good selection of seeds today, like veggies, milkweed, and herbs. Thank you very much for that tip. And hello, Sandy. Good to see ya. Alrighty, everybody. Well, welcome to the impromptu office hour here at Growing with Professor Brown. Now, let me turn this around so I can show you all the completed Hugelkultur bed. Woohoo! So last week we had been working on the irrigation, hadn't yet put any of the plants in the ground. As you can see, the irrigation is now complete. We have the 1/4-inch irrigation lines running throughout the entire length of the bed. All the way down here at the end, we have a lizard. Say hello. Oh, no, he doesn't want to say hello. I'm sorry. Hi. Nope. Got a lot of lizards back here. Hi there, Diane. How are you doing? Oh, came back. All the way down here at this end, we have an outlet. I talked a little bit about this. I always like to have an outlet at the end of my irrigation line. Once a month or so, I'll open this up and turn the irrigation on and let it flush out so that if any soil gets trapped in the lines here, it can wash right out the end. All right, now this little tomato looks a little bit sad today. This one has been struggling a little bit. This is the Sun Gold. This is normally the tomato that does the best, but I think that either it was a little bit hot in there for it, or maybe the water didn't get all the way down to the roots. I did bury that one pretty deep. I might have to give that a little bit extra water the next time I water. Now, these tomato plants keep putting out flowers. I just planted them a few days ago, and we've been getting flowers on all of them. And as you know, this is where the fruit comes from. Yoink. Look at that, I just pulled it off. Uh-oh, now I'm not gonna get fruit, right? Oh wait, there's more flowers on there. Yoink. Oh, look at that, I pulled all the flowers off. Uh-oh. Okay, everybody. I just pulled the flowers off of that brand new tomato plant. Why did I do that? Anyone want to tell me? What's my reasoning? Why would I pull the new flowers off of tomato plants that just went in the ground the other day? What do you think? Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Very good, Diane. So actually, the reason why I'm pulling the flowers off of these brand new tomato plants is so that the tomato plant can focus on root growth. You got it right, Diane. So the flowers require energy and also phosphorus to develop. Roots also require a good amount of phosphorus. So when I plant new plants, I'll usually pinch off the flowers. I'm not pinching the flowers off of these marigolds or the alyssum because I'm not too worried about them. But the tomatoes and other fruiting plants, I will pinch off the flowers when I first plant them. Now I'm just noticing, holy cow, this got really torched today. Look at that. Boy, howdy, I'm probably going to have to cut some of these leaves off. This tomato either got really torched or it's got a little bit of some kind of a wilt. I think that I might have to prune off these lower leaves down here and again water a little bit deeper. But boy howdy, you can see that this soil is still damp from when I watered it last, and actually I don't need to water again. It's still plenty wet. I'm a little bit concerned about this soil being a little bit too hot. This is the veggie mix from OF Wolfenbagers, and when I first got it, it was literally steaming hot. They put quite a lot of chicken manure in here. I'm a little worried that it might have been not quite as cooked down as I would have liked. So, oh well. I guess it is what it is. We'll just keep an eye on these tomato plants, and as long as they get through the next couple of weeks, they should be all right. Now, as you have noticed, I don't just have tomato plants in here. We also have some delicious basil. Maria, that's a good question, actually. So Maria in the chat asked if that happens, can I put some shade over the bed? And yes, if too much sun is the problem, then putting some shade over the bed can help fix the problem. However, if the soil was just too hot for the plants, and if it was kind of baking the roots, which can happen, we'll just have to wait for the soil to cool down. Now, this tomato looks all right. This one looks great. That one looks a little bit sad. This one I'm actually the most worried about because that one looks a little dehydrated, probably from the sun. But this one actually looks crispy and cooked, and I'm almost a little worried that there might be some kind of a, not a fusarium, but some kind of a fungal infection in there. I don't know. We're gonna keep an eye on this and see what's going on with this. Now, Yolanda says, can you mix it with other compost to cool it down? So this is a bedding soil. It's not just compost. And actually, you could mix in some sand or some regular soil, or use less compost when it's hot. But really, when you have a soil or a compost that's not broken down enough, it really is best to just let it cool down through the decomposition process before you use it. Unfortunately, I purchased this and hoped that it would be ready to go, but might have been a little bit too hot. All right, now back to the companion plants. You'll notice that I've got a couple of different kinds of basil here. This is a blue African basil. Actually, it reminds me a lot of a Thai basil, except it's got larger leaves. This is just your standard Italian basil, and this one is really happy, looking great. And right down here we have Tulsi, or the holy basil. And if you're not familiar with holy basil, this is a really nice one. It's a little bit on the sweet side, really good in stir fries and Thai-like dishes. Yolanda says, sand. I thought you always said not to use sand in the garden. So this mix here is a sand mix. So this is actually garden soil that I purchased that's based on sand. It actually has wood fines, chicken manure. It's basically sand and compost mixed together. So since this is already a sand base, I could mix sand into this if I wanted to cool it down. If you have a clay soil, you don't want to mix sand with clay. And if you do that, that's actually going to make your soil essentially as hard as concrete. So remember, do not mix sand and clay. You can use sand if you already have sand, though. And as a matter of fact, I wouldn't be purchasing sand. If I wanted to mix some sand into this, I would just take some of the sandy soil down here. This is just the native soil, and as you can see, it is very, very sandy. In fact, the profile of this soil here is almost identical to the stuff from Wolfenbagers. So I'm not afraid to mix the two together. In fact, I've actually amended along the back fence here with a little bit of the Wolfenbager soil. In fact, I'll show you. Now, I did incorporate this soil together. So I did mix the native soil with a little bit of the Wolfenbager soil. Look, another lizard. They really are everywhere. But I just got done amending this, although Actually, I guess I'm not quite done. I'm still going to add a little bit of this organic planting mix here. That doesn't have any sand or any soil of any kind. That's really just a like a compost mix. And this is really good stuff, actually. This is Big Harvest Garden Soil, it says. But actually, if we take a look at the ingredients back here, you can see that it's aged redwood, aged fir bark, compost, dehydrated chicken manure, earthworm castings, bat guano, kelp meal, and alfalfa meal. So it's really just a bunch of organic matter. Then I can mix this in to the soil. And in fact, I'm planning on adding a bit of that into this entire bed along the backside of the fence here. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll come back to this in a moment. I should probably finish talking about what's going on over here. Uh-oh, give me 1 second here. I'm having technical difficulties. Alrighty. I've got my tablet over here so that I can chat with you all later. And the tablet keeps crashing, so I was getting that set up for a little bit later. No, I'm fine, Diane. Don't worry, sorry. That tablet over there keeps having issues, so I was just making sure that it was going to function properly. All right. Now, next up, we have some borage or borage. Many of you are familiar with this. We've talked about this in class before. Ouchie, it's a little bit prickly. This is the plant that has the really pretty little blue flowers that are sweet. They taste like a combination of cucumbers and honey. You can eat the flowers raw, actually, or you can put them in salads. The leaves can also be eaten. I learned recently, I've never tried these, but it was recommended that you steam them or cook them in some way so that you can get rid of those little prickly spines. Now, of course, we all know what this is, right? Who can tell me what that is? I'm hungry for some tacos. What do we got here? Not parsley. That right there is parsley. That one right there is correct. Cilantro. Yes, we got some cilantro in here. Very good. Now, of course, we also have our marigolds and our alyssum. Now, I like to plant alyssum pretty much anywhere where I have vegetables. Alyssum is really good at attracting ladybugs and seraphid flies and green lacewings, all of the little critters that I like to have to help protect my other plants from aphids and spider mites, actually. So this is great for protecting the tomatoes from spider mites. And then, of course, we have our marigolds, because marigolds have that lovely scent that help to keep away some of the pests that get on our tomato plants, including the tomato hornworm. And, of course, the roots of the marigolds also produce that chemical that goes out into the soil. It's irritating to nematodes, so that also helps to keep the root knot nematodes out of our soil. Now, aside from that, of course, you see I have these wood chips in here. And these are the wood chips that I have inoculated with this special saprophytic fungi. And in fact, here's some of the inoculant here. This is actually how the fungus comes. I got it and I mixed it in that pile over there with the wood chips and let it get started for a couple of days. And now I've got it spread out in here. Now, I'm actually planning on putting down an even thicker layer of these wood chips, but I'm going to wait for all of the plants to grow out a little bit more, get more established, and then I'm going to come in the in-between areas like this, and I'm going to set down even more wood chips. But I want to wait until everything is well established before I do that. For instance, you know, if that tomato continues to struggle, if that tomato dies, I'll have to come in and take that out. So I don't want to have too many wood chips in here quite yet. Once everything is established, we'll finish that off. Now, Miriam asks, please repeat why you don't turn the soil. Now, you typically don't turn the soil because you don't want to disturb all of the critters that are in the ground over here. Now, if you have a really heavy clay soil, like really, really bad clay soil like that, ow, my knuckle, just kidding. If you have a really hard clay soil, that is the only time that I would turn the soil over to incorporate compost into the soil to help break it up. Of course, you can also have plants do that job. But generally speaking, once the soil is nice and loose, when the soil is like this, you know, I can get into it really, really easy. I don't need to turn over the soil. And as a matter of fact, if I want to put more soil in here, if I want to add something like compost, I'll just add it to the top of the bed. Of course, in here, I would want to pull the wood chips back before I added any compost. I don't want to put compost on top of the wood chips. But I wouldn't be adding compost in this bed more than probably about once per year if I need to do that much. Now, this bed might not need that much, partially because we've got worms in this bed. Look at that. Let's see. Yolanda asks, Ben, I have a question on how do you keep cats out of the garden from using it like a litter box? So to keep cats out of the garden, they do sell these, it's kind of like, I don't want to call it a tray. It's actually, it's a little bit like this. It's kind of a flat thing that goes in the garden. It's got these spikes sticking up, and you can take it and lay it down in a bed so that the spikes are facing up. And what happens is the cats come in. It's not going to hurt them. It's not sharp. It's not going to stab into them. But if they come and try to walk around in the area, they'll jump back because those spikes are hard, and they won't want to go in there. That can also keep things like skunks out of beds. I forget what that product is called, but you can find that online. They also sell different scram things like critter scram. These are things that you can purchase that have a strong scent that are supposed to keep critters out of the garden, including cats. Those I find don't work as well. And one of the big problems is when it rains, any of the scent stuff that you put down ends up washing away. And so that's not very useful when the thing that's supposed to keep the critters away washes away. Hopefully that helps you, Yolanda. Now, back to the bed. I guess you all already know what's going on in the very bottom of this bed. We have a Hugelkultur. So I actually have logs just like this underneath the soil, along with branches and leaves, and then a layer of compost and some worm castings. But I also added in these worm bins, and I was just digging in this a little bit ago, and I probably should have waited before I did it because I opened it up and now the worms are hiding. In fact, the worms are now down below, probably in the bedding material. I really should not have left this open as long as I did. I opened it up just before I started the live stream, so the worms are probably down in the very bottom of this by now. Now, the worms are a little bit shy. I'm going to go ahead and put this cardboard back on top to keep them covered up. I don't have a lot of worms right now, so I only filled my worm bin up about halfway, as you can see. But as they multiply and as there's more worms in there, I'm going to add more food, and this is going to end up bulking out more and more. Oops, don't want the wood chips in there. I guess that doesn't really hurt anything, but oops. We'll just keep it cardboard for now. Now, of course, critters will come in and eat these worms, so this bin comes with a lid. We're going to get that on there. There we go. And then slide it on. And that's on tight. I also like to take a piece of loose cardboard like this and set it down on top just to keep the sun off of the plastic. Of course, I want to make sure that it can still breathe. So I have a loose piece of cardboard, as you can see. All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, the birds will have breakfast. Leave it closed. I agree, Maria. Now, this alyssum looks like it got a little bit sad today. It's not doing too bad, but it's a little bit crispy. I think that there's actually enough water in here, but the problem is these plants have not really developed roots yet. Once the roots have actually stretched out into the bed, and once the worms have gotten out and started doing their magic, I think everything is going to be a lot happier. Still worried about this poor tomato plant, though. My gosh, it's so crispy. Oh well. Probably not going to do very well if I keep playing around with it, huh? All right, now I'm going to show you what's going on the north fence over here. I already mentioned I've started amending the soil, and we have picked up a couple of herbs. So far we have some lemongrass, we have some dill, we have some stevia. We also have some tarragon and some lemon balm, and this right here is a bee balm, which I don't think bee balm is edible, although I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure this isn't edible, but this is a nice plant to have for your pollinators. It gets some really pretty flowers on it. My mom wanted this, so we went ahead and grabbed that. And I'm going to be filling this out with some flowers. We're going to have flowers at different heights in here. And originally, I talked about putting a grape in here. We were going to do a little arbor. I realized I was using the Sunseeker app, and this spot gets pretty decent sun most of the year. But starting at the end of May, because of this oak tree here, because of that over there, this only gets about 6 hours of sunlight during the day, during the real height, from the end of May heading through, I'd say, the beginning of July. So we're changing plans. The grape that we got is actually going to go over there, where I was planning originally on putting a blackberry. And since blackberries can handle a little bit more shade, we're actually going to put the blackberry over here on this side. This still gets plenty of sun during the springtime and during the fall, but during the height of summer, it's a little bit too shady for the grape. So we'll have the grape over there between those two poles on that side. Yolanda says, or asks, is it best to purchase more established tomato plants instead of the smaller ones that you planted? No, I personally prefer to have the smaller tomato plants. I don't need to buy the really full established ones. These actually are bigger than they look because I buried them. Remember that with tomato plants, we can actually bury the stem. These will look a lot different. Give them a couple of weeks. This is still just really the first week. In fact, that one's planted exactly 1 week ago, and these ones were planted just 6 days ago. So they just need a little bit of time and a little bit of love. Now, I'm going to show you all something special. We'll see if they're still here. I'm not going to get too close. I'm going to have to use my phone's zoom function. So everybody go to Zoom now. No, I'm just kidding. Not that kind of Zoom. Aha, yes, they're still here. So, I'm going to tell you a story. And I got to be a little bit quiet now. So, we had a dove nest up here last year, and the doves kept coming back and laying their eggs in here. And we had doves again, and babies just left the nest this morning, and they're still hanging out down here. See if I can zoom in further. There we go. So these are our two little baby doves. Don't worry, I'm not going to get any closer than this. The parents are eyeing me right now. They're actually behind me and to my right. You can hear them. But we'll leave those little babies alone. I just wanted to show you they're They're so adorable. By tomorrow, they will have flown out of here and they will be long gone. Yeah, they'll be laying more eggs, I'm sure. Now, I also wanted to show you, once again, the Jabatacoba. We talked about this the other day, last week, the last 2 weeks. Now, most of these are ripe now. You can see that there are still some green ones, and actually these large ones are really tasty. Let me see if I can get to a really big one. I'm gonna go digging through here. Yeah, take a look at that. Now, these are one of my favorite fruit. They're so tasty. I've talked about these in class a few times. It has a flavor a little bit like a lychee fruit. The skin is extremely tart, almost a little bit bitter. Some people will eat the skin, but basically you just eat the inside. There are some seeds in there, so you have to be careful. But, moment of truth. Delicious. Now you can see inside there what that looks like. Actually, I'll show you on this side. Yoop. There we go. So that's the good stuff inside there. And again, that white stuff tastes a lot like lychee. Very, very good flavor. I like to chew on the skin a little bit. But, but it is a little bit bitter. But it is very tasty. Woo. Yeah, the more chew on it, the more tart and bitter it becomes. But it is tasty. Lynn asks, should we, excuse me, oop, down the wrong pipe. Lynn asks, should we be fertilizing our plants now? And it depends. For instance, I'm planting the new vegetables and flowers, and I will be fertilizing all of those. Planting some fruit trees, we're going to take a look at that next, and I'm fertilizing those as I put them in the hole. Some things can be fertilized. You know, citrus right now can be fertilized. Ooh, yum. Look at that. Tasty. I'm going to eat one of these when you're all not looking. So yeah, citrus can be fertilized. You want to be careful not to fertilize too heavily right now. You want to be a little bit light, especially when there's fruit on the trees. Here you can see the tangerines are coming in. You know, it's funny. Every other year, we get a really big crop of tangerines. And as you can see, a lot of these are just popping right off. We had that really bad heat wave the last day of winter. This was actually our good tangerine year. So this is the good year. And it looks like we're going to have a medium to small crop this year because so many of these got burnt up in that heat wave that we had on the last day of winter. In fact, I think we're going to have issues with a lot of different fruit here in California this year because of that really extreme heat that we had. I'm sure some of you remember it was about 100 degrees on the last day of winter here in California. That was pretty extreme. And actually, some cities beat their previous record for that day by 2 to about 6 degrees, if you could believe it. Now, I did want to show you the planter box that I rescued by the side of the road. Got it full of soil, and boy, howdy, it is not moving now, because let me tell you, this soil weighs a ton. These slats were separating a little bit on the bottom. I decided to give the slats one more year. I was going to replace them, but they actually looked pretty solid, so I decided to give them one more year before I replaced them down there. But now that I've got the soil in here, man, I tell you, this thing is not budging, and as dilapidated as it looks, it is still very strong. Now, I'm going to be planting 2 pepper plants in here. Not going to do it on the live stream today, but we'll be putting 2 pepper plants and an Oya in here. So I'll be burying the Oya right there. And of course, we'll be watering overhead on the peppers, but we will also have this in here as a backup for the pepper plants. Although, you know, I'm not sure. I might actually get one of the Oya spikes here instead. I like this Oya a lot, but it releases its water very quickly, actually. This one will release all of its water in as little as 24 hours, where the Oya spikes, like these over here, here's one with some old peppers that are from last year. This Oya spike here, with a bottle of wine like this, will actually last for up to 7 days, although in the heat it drains a lot faster. Ooh, came right off. I'll clean that up later. Hello, Scott. How are you doing? And yes, Maria, I agree. I agree. All right, now let's see here. I think we've already looked at everything going on along here. We've talked about the bed. We talked about a bunch of random stuff I didn't plan on talking about. I think it's time to talk a little bit about our fruit trees. So as you can see, I have already planted 2 of the fruit trees. In the trio that we're going to have in here, we have 1 more tree to go, and I'm going to plant that on the live stream right now. Before I do, I want to talk a little bit about backyard orchard style tree plantings. Now, you'll notice I have 3 trees planted very, very close to each other. As a matter of fact, if I had my measure, which, nope. Oh, there it is. I'm good at forgetting where I've put things. There we go. Generally speaking, when you do a planting like this, you tend to plant them about 18 inches apart. I think I gave these 20 inches. Let's see here. Yeah, you can see I planted these about 20 inches apart. I'm planning on planting that one right there, right down here. Again, about 20 inches away. Now, one of the reasons why we're planting these so close is to create competition. But wait a second, you don't want your trees to compete. Well, actually, I do want my trees to compete. As a matter of fact, I want to keep all 3 of these fruit trees smaller so that they don't take over this entire space. Now, all of these trees have already been pruned, as you can see, so that they are not growing towards the center. Same thing on this one, although, well, this one doesn't have a whole lot going on. Now this persimmon here has already been trimmed up and is looking really good. I'm going to be doing a little bit of trimming down here. Actually, this piece is going to have to come off because that's growing towards the center. The plum here has not been trimmed very much yet. Now, I've already cut the plum down to the height that I want. By the way, I've chopped all of these very, very low, and we're going to scaffold the branches out. But this has not been pruned yet, and I think I'm going to give it maybe a week or so. I just want to take a look and see what these small branches are going to do in the next week, and I'm going to decide which ones I want to prune off and which ones I want to keep. I'm really only going to keep, at the most, maybe 3 or 4 of these branches. So most of this is going to come off. Now the peach actually only has this little bit up here. I chopped this down. It was actually taller, but I'm actually going to cut this even lower, and I'll explain why in a second. But let me snap this over here. Give me just 1 second to put this on the tripod. And let's see, I'm gonna move the tripod just a little bit closer here, I think. Let's get that right about there. I think that'll be good. I hope. I'll tilt this up just a little bit. There we go. Now hopefully, maybe I'll move back just a touch. Okay. There we go. Now what I'm going to do here is grab my... Nope, that looks like my iPad has crashed and died again. So unfortunately, it looks like I will not be able to talk to the chat until I come back to my cell phone. So I guess really quick, let me answer your questions here, and then I'll do the demo, and then I'll come back to the chat after. So while I'm doing the demo, please feel free to ask any questions you have. I'll get to them once I get done with that demo. Let's see. It says I have water spikes for extra water. Very nice. Did you add an Oya to the bed for extra water, Ben, or just irrigation? So the raised bed does not have any Oyas in it. We just have the drip irrigation in there, and we're going to stick with drip in that one. Although, you know, an Oya might be good for when nobody's around, when people are on vacation. At least keep the plants going a little bit longer. But of course, we can always throw a timer on this as well. So that's another option. All right, now I'm going to flip this around here, and we're going to go ahead and do our little demo. So as I mentioned, we have 2 fruit trees already planted. We have 1 to go. Now I have to walk around the path here, so excuse me for a moment while I grab a few things. Now, as you can see, I've already dug this hole. And so this should be pretty well ready to just plop out here. And in fact, this has already been loosened up, so I'm just going to slide this over, and not hit the other tree, and pull this out like so. Ooh. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is at the level that I want. I do not want this root ball to be lower than the surrounding soil. If it's a little bit higher than the surrounding soil, that's okay. And actually right now it looks to me like it is just a touch higher than the surrounding soil. So this is just perfect for me. I'm gonna leave it just like this, but I need to do 2 things before I plant this. Number 1, I need to get my tape measure here, and I'm gonna measure this out and make sure that I have this placed correctly. So this is 21 inches away from that one. Looks like these 2 might be a little bit too close, but we'll see. Yeah, that's at about 18 inches right there, which means I need to move this out just a little bit further. And in fact, actually, I think I'm gonna have to use my hori to move a little bit of the soil. It looks like the side of this wall collapsed a little bit. Ooh, now, I had filled this hole with water after digging it out. I wanted to make sure that the soil was saturated inside and around the hole. But of course, when you do that, sometimes the sides of the hole collapse a little bit, which is exactly what happened in here just now. Okay, that should just about do it. Let's test that there. Yeah, that looks good. Now I'm going to measure it one more time. Now, I know that this seems a little bit OCD, but it is important to make sure that these trees are planted the right distance apart. This is exactly 20 inches on this side, and 20.5 inches on this side. So we're going to leave it right there. All right. Now, 2 things I'm going to do before I plant this into the ground. First off, I have the soil that I'm going to backfill. This is very sandy soil that has not been amended in a very long time. Of course, this is where the avocado tree, and there were a lot of leaves and organic material in here. But I want to amend this a little bit, not too much. I'm just going to take some of this amendment that I showed you earlier. Again, this is a mixture of redwood fines. I think there's some fir in there, a little bit of worm castings, bat guano. There's no soil in here. This is just like a mulch. So I'm going to just throw some of this out here. It looks like a lot, but I'm not using that much, don't worry. And actually, I'm also going to use a little bit of starter fertilizer. Now this right here is the organic starter fertilizer that I use, and the box is over here. It looks like it fell. fell down over here. This is from Down to Earth. In fact, I think I showed this the other week. This is the Down to Earth BioLive starter fertilizer. I used to use just their plain old starter fertilizer, but I guess they're not making that anymore. Now, for a fruit tree of this size, we want to put between 1 to 2 cups, I believe. Let me double check here. Yeah, 1 to 2 cups with the backfill. And I'm going to say I've probably got at least 3 cups in here. I'm being very scientific right now. Now, I'm just going to eyeball this. It is a very good idea to measure out fertilizers like this, but this is an organic fertilizer, and this is a very light fertilizer, so I'm not too worried about it. Let's get a little bit more than that. Let's see. Yeah, that's about right. I don't think that's quite 2 cups. I think that was about 1.5. Like I said, very, very scientific. Give me 1 second. I have to grab a shovel. Now, of course, I have my hory, but since I'm going to be backfilling this tree, I would rather have a full spade like this one here. Sorry, little guy. Now, I'm just going to mix this soil amendment and fertilizer into the backfill. I'm not going to get too crazy here. Oops. You saw nothing. I'll just give it a couple of stirs here. Make sure I don't have any big clumps of the fertilizer. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And we'll start to backfill. Now, a couple of things. Since everybody told me to use gloves last time, I guess I could use gloves for this part. This is for you, Yolanda. And did Diane tell me to use gloves too? I think Diane might have said something too. I'm trying to remember who told me to wear gloves. Now, the reason why I'm putting these gloves on now is because I'm going to pack down around this tree. Now, let me get the camera a little bit closer here. You can see what I'm going to do. Now, really quick, let me check the chat too. Let's see. We can hear the mourning doves while you're working. Yeah, you can hear them. The parents are still watching.